And great to be with everybody here and those that are connecting with us there. So let me just go back to this for a minute because it's just kind of fun. I'm going to have Carmen share a story in a moment, but these locations again, I'm going to talk specifically Canada in a little bit because it's part of the next part of the journey. But as we come into the Africa aspect of where I just was and the things that we've been doing there, you'll get a sense of where we are currently in our work up here in Zambia. This is near Ndola is where you fly in, a fairly major city. Luanshya is just outside of that. And then down here, just outside of Harare, which is the capital of Zimbabwe, is where we are located in a very rural area in that place. So I just want to zoom in because I've talked about how in Twashuka specifically, this little area just on the outside of Luanshya, you'll see how it is quite isolated and separated. So you'll see this whole area, this big possible number of people here in Luanshya. And then over here, you'll have this sort of separated area, and it's very distinct as we come into that. So again, you have a fairly somewhat normal city, certainly to North American standards, but as far as some other areas of the world, maybe more third world areas in cities. But this, so you'll see this dark sort of space between Luanshya and Twashuka. So Twashuka has about 10 to 12,000 people in it. And it, again, very distinct. Here is a waterway that can be flooded a lot. So it's separated from the rest of the area. So that is an area where basically the outcasts went, and it wasn't even on the map. It was never mapped. It was just sort of a shanty town where people went. And so that's the place that we've been called to working. And you can see all around it, there's nothing sort of connected. Out here, you get into the fields all around. And again, this barrier between the rest. And it really was this incredibly dark place. And then as you zoom in to where we are doing our current work now, which is this property here, I'll come in a little bit more so you can sort of see what we've been doing there. This is the school. This section was built. We've added this there. This is now the washrooms we just built. This is the community center where the baptismal is now built right behind there. And the work that we're currently doing, we're just now purchasing. This person's has not wanted to sell that property. We're just in the midst of, we just finalized the deal for that to get this entire property and this one behind to sort of finalize that. Now, if you were hearing me talk about a very dark location, and the main stronghold of this area was right here. So this is that property where all the murders took place. Basically comes from here all around there. And when I come out of that a bit, you'll see how fairly centralized that is to the rest. So we're not far from where our current location is this dark place. And it was there that we started when I first arrived, and then finished by literally breaking the curse over the land. And if you haven't heard some of the stories, the hundreds of miracles that took place, people coming of faith, people would just gather around. We would walk around and people would just sort of gather with us. I mean, it really was an amazing time for us, and all that was going on. And so, yeah, we're just really incredible, some of the things that that happened as a result of what was happening there. So in this is sort of coming to this realization that this, again, the curse on this land has been broken. Who is that? Jehovah's Witness. Yeah. That is hilarious. We just had Jehovah's Witness come to our door. they're obviously new, because I haven't had Jehovah's Witness here for years. Because of course I talk to them, I try to bring them in, I tell them what I believe, then they bring it higher up. By the time they bring their fourth higher up, and you let them know the truth of the scriptures, then you get a black X and they avoid us. So I kind of sad I don't have the opportunity to be able to share the good news with them right now. But anyway, there you go. They'll be back, because if they don't know, I look forward to their coming back to be able to share the truth of the good news. Anyway, that is hilarious. So yeah, so we just, in the midst of all that, I'm sharing some of this just because of the ongoing happenings that are happening there. You know, if you haven't heard, now as our Henry and Elizabeth drive on the property or in this whole, anywhere in this area, people are running to the car, groups are forming, people want to come to faith, they want to be prayed for healing. And we just got a fairly recent story as well. And so I don't know, why don't you come over here, Carm, if you want to share this this sort of fun story about what has happened. And where she's going to be talking about is what they sort of call the market right in this area. Let me go back here. It's actually in this area here where people just put a bunch of food and produce on the street, and as a fairly large area. And not far from here, we have where we do our current farming and stuff. And so why don't you share some of the story about what had happened?
So a couple days after Mike had left, Elizabeth went into the town, and this woman just comes running up to her. She's so excited. Like Elizabeth said, she was like trembling, and she was trying to describe what had happened. And she said, on the day that Michael left, all of a sudden, on that evening of the day that he left, in the sky above our farmland appeared this pillar of fire, like a cloud. And she was like, it was like a cloud, but it was like fire, but it was like a pillar of fire, like a cloud. And it started over that farmland, and then it moved across the sky over our community center and school, over the market, and that's where all the people were. And the people are looking up, and they're going, the God of Mike.
In case you know.
And it carried across the sky, and people were all watching, and they were amazed. And then it settled down, and it went over the swamp area, and then just disappeared over there. So that was the story that she told.
Yeah, yes. Hey, again, we have fun in one sense with this, but the interesting thing, when I was preparing last week on the manna stuff, and I was reading through, you know, as we were getting going, and that again, the cloud and the pillar of fire, and I immediately, as I said that, sensed that something like that was going to happen over Trishuka. I didn't realize it had already happened, you know, that there was a tangible. And so what is happening as a result of us understanding what it means to break the curse on a land, when you have the understanding of what that means and what we then have the ability to participate in, is I think extraordinary beyond our imagination. I think I'm only getting a bit of a glimpse of the significance of what that means when we're called. And so when I go back through and I read Joshua 1, where it says, wherever you set your foot, right, I will give you the land of wherever you set your foot. Well, the Lord, as I was thinking about that, the Lord said to me, that doesn't just mean you can just, you know, willy-nilly say where I set my feet. He said that was such a clear call when they understood as they walked into enemy-occupied territory. Okay, that's where that phrase comes. The phrase comes as they understood the land of which they were going to possess, they would have to take from the enemy. Does that make sense? Yeah. And as they understood, followed and inspired by God, by his leading and directing and walking out his direction in that, as they went in the power of the Lord, to reclaim the land that had been taken, or in that sense, to take the land that the Lord had promised to them. In their taking of the land, in the way that the Lord had called them, they would then possess the land of wherever they set their feet. Does that make sense? And so we just have to understand that. We can't just claim that without an understanding of how the enemy has occupied the territory and in what way they're occupied. So you can look at, Jericho and the walls of Jericho, and how they possess that land would be different than when they went up against others, right? Everyone had specific ways of taking down the stronghold of the people of the land that they were going to possess. Is that, right? So there's just something in that I think is just so important for us to understand, to really begin to operate in greater awareness, one of our authority, one of our identity, and one as the Lord leads us. And how do we then take possession? How do we take what the enemy, and again, through shedding of innocent blood, certainly one of the big ways of that has happened, and how do we reclaim those things? And we can look at different people groups and how they were used on that land. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. So anyway, that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about. So all of this is just sort of warming us up for a lot that I wanted to share. And again, just so everybody knows, I had zero intention of going live again after last week. I actually told multiple people, no, we're not doing that again. And then in the midst of this, the Lord said, you have to go live again. So here we are. I see we got our friends on, Henry and Elizabeth from Zambia right there. They're the ones that are continuing the work, and they're the ones that people are gathering around or continue the healing, the signs and wonders that has not let up. The manna, the anointing was given. And so Elizabeth, I don't know if you heard what Carmen shared, but just let us know about how accurate or not, anything you want to clarify on what is happening there.
She shared exactly what I heard from the woman in Pashuka. That's what she said. She hasn't missed any word.
Right. Yeah, it's quite something. And what is continuing, Henry or Elizabeth? What is happening there as I have left?
Yeah, actually, there are so many things happening. The people that you left that gave their lives to Christ, they have continued, coming to Ekklesia, and a lot of other things are just taking place. People are, excited. They are testifying to what God is doing, in their lives. Yeah. Yes.
It is incredibly encouraging. And so it's just so awesome to have you guys here on as a part of this today. I honestly, I haven't actually looked of different people that might be on here. But yeah, that's awesome. Awesome to have you guys here and to be able to share what I'll be sharing today. So you guys got a bit of this on, just so you know, every Tuesday I meet with Henry and Elizabeth and Weston and Liz from Zimbabwe, and Henry and Elizabeth's son, Timothy. But boy, they got a lot from me on Tuesday morning. I think it was about 50 minutes of red hot fire that I was giving. So anyway, they did more listening than normal on Tuesday morning, but it's a blessing to have you guys with us. And so, yeah, it is awesome. Yeah. All right. I'll continue on just being able to share. One of the questions as I went down this morning, and the Lord just keeps speaking this to me, collecting fresh manna every day. I said, Lord, where do you want me to start? And literally, he gave me these words for us, anybody in the hearing of my voice, be that now or through the recording. His exact words were, ask the people, have they be collecting the fresh manna that I'm providing every day? It is available, but you must choose to collect it. Yesterday's manna was for yesterday. Collect your fresh manna every day. It's available to you. And so that's a direct word from the Lord. And of course, when he's talking about this word manna, as he's been speaking to me about that, it's not just obviously the bread, you know, the substance. It's about, again, from the passage in Deuteronomy, it's not, man does not survive just only on bread, but on the very word that comes from the mouth of God. And so in this reference of this manna, it's, are we collecting the word from the Lord? Are we collecting? Are we receiving? Spending the time expectant to hear from him directly, honestly. This is, even when you read that passage in Deuteronomy, it talks about hearing from the Lord, receiving from the Lord. And are we taking the time to just be expectant, to collect and to receive that fresh word of the Lord each and every day for us? And so anyway, that's where he wanted me to start. Well, as we on Tuesday morning, as I went to spend some time down at the stream, as I was already there this morning and received this word for everyone, I had listened to Dutch Sheets, I believe that morning, or I finished off that morning, where he does this full talk with at Oasis Church on the Friday night. He gave that word, and I just knew that there was something so important in it. And again, it's very America specific, but every time I hear it, the Lord keeps saying it's the same for Canada. It's not like he's putting the two, from my perspective, together, rather than what I have spoken in this message for America, you can also receive that for Canada, all right, in the fullness of what's being communicated. And so as I was reflecting on that, and there's a part of it, and I'll just explain it. If you haven't seen the video, you have to watch the video in its entirety, but I'll clarify this point. It's they're there in this dream, in this massive stadium. There's about 100 people on the stage. They're hearing from the Lord. The Lord's speaking to them, but all of a sudden, these two massive cables get dropped onto the stage, and you know, people are looking at these cables, but on the end of each cable, these two large rings, and then 4 angels came, and 2 would grab one cable, each ring from one cable, and the 2 others would grab the other rings. And as they grabbed those cables and those rings, they went to the farthest north and to the farthest south, and they connected those rings to anchors that had been placed deeply into the earth. And the other 2 angels went to the farthest east and to the farthest west, and they put those rings and clamped those rings onto these anchors that had been placed deeply into the earth. And then 2 more cables dropped, and that was for the southwest and for the, you know, I keep getting up, north east, and they would do it diagonally, and they had to connect those to the anchors. Well, as they were saying that, my whole body was vibrating, as the Lord is saying. He said to me immediately this, not Tuesday morning, he said, the spikes that you have been placing in Canada are the anchors of which these cables will be attached to. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was basically shaking. I'm like, whoa, you know, that seems like a lot. Because when you think of, when they're talking about those cables, they're talking about those cables being placed to the farthest ends of the nation to hold it, because there is a shaking coming. Okay, so there's a shaking coming upon the earth. There's a shaking coming in second heaven. The only unshakable thing is third heaven, is the kingdom of God in third heaven, which is unshakable. And as we begin to live out the fullness of the kingdom in these days, the third heaven, the unshakable heaven, is descending and is causing a shaking in second heaven and upon the earth. And they said that there's a time coming where there's going to be such a shaking that if we aren't fully connected, fully secured in the word of the Lord, in who we are, in our identity, that we will be shaken to the core and will become fearful in the shaking that is coming. And then, Dutch Sheets and him and others. So he's one of now several voices. And Dutch said, and also his brother Tim, because they both spoke on that Friday night, have talked about, and neither one of them like to ever give times or dates or anything. Both of them heard clearly the middle of September. Okay, middle of September. And I've been hearing other voices talking about middle of September. And so there's a shaking coming that we have now 2.5 months of preparing for the coming shaking. He says you need to place those cables, get people engaged, and be prepared for that is coming. Then he said to me, "You've not completed your journey." And I'm like, "Oh, of course." He said, "You've not gone to the north and you've not gone to the furthest west." And I knew exactly in it. It was, one of the first, and I don't even know actually if Judy is on here. I didn't actually see that, but one of the very first, when I first had the call to go across Canada and, farthest east, farthest south, I said, "Hey, if anybody wants me to stop on the way or join us at any of those, please let me know." One of the first 3 messages was from Judy, who lives in Whitehorse. And she sent me a note saying, "Don't forget the north." And she wrote me this fairly lengthy thing. It says that this meeting is going to end. If it does, please, I will post another place for you to join in. Sadly, my Zoom went on the blink today, and now I had to sign up for a temporary account somehow. Again, the enemy is always trying to steal away what the Lord is wanting to do. So in one sense, no big surprise.
I was going to say the middle of September this year, Rosh Hashanah falls on September the 16th.
Yeah. So Yom Teruah, which I generally use more than even Rosh Hashanah, because to me that's a civil New Year. For me, the biblical New Year we had a few months ago. But anyway, it is Yom Teruah, the Feast of Trumpets, begins the evening of September 15th. The official date is September 16th, but it begins the evening. Yom Teruah, the Feast of Trumpets, the blowing of trumpets, which is interesting when people start talking about who aren't necessarily looking at these feasts, declaring the middle of September. Right? Then you have, just after that, you have Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Yes, the 25th, 26th. That then leads in 5 days after that to that Feast of Tabernacles. That comes right after that, which lasts for 7 days from the beginning of that. All of that coming in September, just a few days into October. So yes, that is certainly important to be aware of. So the White Horse connection came. Do not forget about the North. This writing of the significance. Then, of course, White Horse in itself, an interesting name. We can see 2 white horses in the book of Revelation. One in Revelation 6 and one in Revelation 19. I would suggest, and if you are wondering about this, theologically, you're going to have to look at some of this stuff by Johnny Enlow. I would suggest, and I firmly agree, even before hearing from Johnny, putting it so well together, that those 7 seals are the enemy trying to keep the scroll of heaven closed. and that those 7 seals and the 7 horses are imposters, demonic imposters, trying to hold back the full revelation of the kingdom of God coming upon the earth. Okay, so that first horse in Revelation 6, I would suggest, and Johnny Enlow and others, and I've done lots of work on this. You don't have to agree with me. Never have to agree. I'm just giving you my opinion on this. Is that is a demonic counterfeit to try to steal what God is going to bring. Now, when you read Revelation 19, there you have the real white horse as the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, Yeshua HaMashiach, riding that horse and the fullness of authority. That is so interesting, because even as I reflect on White Horse and what we're going to be doing there, we have 2 different realities. We have the demonic imposter, and we have the reality of Yeshua HaMashiach, the King, Jesus Christ, the one to bring the kingdom. The Lord says, you need to go there to slay the imposter.
Wow.
In White Horse, you need to go to slay the imposter horse, so that the true white horse of the kingdom of God can be established. And when you look up White Horse, there is one road in, one road out. They come and they both split into highway, I think 1 and 2 or whatever that is. But as you come in, I mean, it's just amazing. One way in, one way out. And he says there is where you're going to be able to cut off access from outside of there and establish his kingdom into that land. So White Horse is one of the calls, and he's speaking about what that looks like. Then Haida Gwaii. So Haida Gwaii, which used to be the Queen Charlotte Islands, it is the furthest west on the ocean. Part of Yukon, even White Horse is actually further west, which is interesting. But again, all of that's landlocked. Why is it landlocked? Well, because of losing the Alaskan Panhandle and all of that. All of that's landlocked. But the furthest west of Canada on the ocean is Haida Gwaii. Okay, from sea to sea, and that's part of this statement: from sea to sea. From sea to sea, that we go to Haida Gwaii. And as we look at Haida Gwaii, and even the natives there that were there, and still many remain from the heritage of what took place, we're also aware that this group was also quite a violent group, and that they would go up and down the coast. I believe I've heard as far as California and all the way up, pillaging and taking people, and a lot sort of went on. So there's a real history. I am not prepared to go into all of that, but there's something there that needs to be dealt with in this whole area of something in the demonic realm of curse, of the shedding of innocent blood, that's connected to the coast to coast, the sea to sea in Canada. And there is something so unbelievably significant. The Lord said, you finish your journey in Haida Gwaii. He said what has to be done there is so unbelievably important for all of Canada. Something that has to be broken in Haida Gwaii is key, a part of what is going to be happening to impact Canada. I know that all sounds incredibly dramatic, but I can say it no other way. I've only had that confirmed by others in the midst of this reality. And so that is the journey. So July 6th, Carmen and I are leaving. I did just a quick little connecting of numbers. It's going to be 5,800 kilometer turnaround. We're leaving July 6th. We're arriving home on July 17th. We're going to be going straight up, first stopping in Prince George, Yeah, so that will be, I see Roger and Sharon on here. We're going to be stopping in to see them. We're going to be meeting with some others. We're going to be dealing with some stuff in Prince George as we go up. Looking forward to that. Then we're going to be going. You can go two ways to that location. And let me just see if I can give everybody a bit of an understanding of that. Let me just quickly see if I can share this as I do this. So, sorry, hopefully everybody can see this. So when you look at, let's cancel that. George. So when you look at Prince George, and I'm going to come out of that view for a second because it's hard to see. So when you come out of Prince George, we're going to be going there on Thursday, the 6th at about 3 p.m. I think we'll be arriving right around there. There are two different directions you can then go north. And one is you'll see here, Highway 97, which brings you up and around this way as far as Fort St. John. And as you continue up, the Lord said to me, I actually, you know, Carmen said after our last trip, we're flying from now on. So Lord, I think we're flying. He goes, you're not flying. I said, okay, you're going to have to talk to Carmen because she's made that pretty clear with me. Anyway, that's another story. But anyway, so then he says, and you're going two directions. I'm thinking two directions. Well, one is you go up 97. So out of Prince George, we're going to be going up this way, 97 as far as Dawson Creek, all the way up through Fort St. John. And then you journey all the way back and you join up with the other one there in, Watson Lake area, Upper Liard. And you then drive into Whitehorse from there. And then so as we come back, there's Whitehorse. As we come back, then we're going to be coming back the 37, which will then bring us all the way down and out to Prince Rupert, at which point we have a ferry booked for the 12th, Wednesday, the 12th of July. What will take, people are helping me today in a big way. That's amazing. I got so much on my mind. Oh, Weston and Liz, you guys are there. Hey, great to see you. Great to see Weston and Liz on here as well from Zimbabwe. And again, I'm seeing so many faces. It's awesome to see you guys here. So right now it is 8:12 p.m. So yeah, 9 hours from us. So anyway, I was just talking about this call again into Haida Gwaii and the journey, the 5,800 kilometers that we're going to be journeying, all of that. And of course, last Saturday, I was given these two spikes. I mean, honestly, I felt I was done, just so you know. When I returned back and from this last trip, and when Danny gave me these, I'm like, hey, great. You know, he had a great story. I thought the story was great. But, you know, I begin to know enough to know if the Lord's giving me spikes, he's probably got a place. And you can't make up Danny's story, of course. And so as Danny, and even the way he got them and he had to go back to get them and where they were and how he saw them, I mean, it's all supernatural. And he gave them to me. And of course, the Lord said, those are two spikes to go into Whitehorse and to Haida Gwaii. That will be the last. And that will be number 14, which is significant. The Lord's been speaking to me a lot about the number 14. If you read Matthew 1, I think it's verse 17, it talks about 14, right? The 14 generations. I mean, it's just interesting how specific the 14 is talked about, right? The 14 generations to there, and the 14 generations from there to there, 14, you know, there's something significant. If you don't know King David's name in Hebrew, the letters add up to 14, okay? Very specifically, the Lord has been speaking to me, and I was sent from Roger the significance of 14 as well. Roger, can you unmute for a second? Because my mind is racing, and just give me a few of the highlights that you had sent me as well.
Well, 14 is the number of deliverance.
Oh, right, the number of deliverance.
So I also scanned something brief to read here earlier this morning.
Yeah.
This I sent to you by text. And this connects to the Dutch Sheets forward, FOREWRD, forward truth,
Right.
and the spirit behind this epic time. This is what I texted to you, Michael, just yesterday morning, quite
Right.
early. It
Yes.
all connects in the spirit, just as the cables interconnect. Yes, 14 is the genealogy number going forward from the beginning. What did the enemy corrupt from the beginning? Holy seed. The enemy corrupted holy seed in the beginning. How did he corrupt it? The generation and future generations set apart for him were corrupted. Forward could be stated to be a holy reset, a new and fresh starting point. What God keeps repeating this morning, that was yesterday morning, is you have not yet seen the deliverance of entire generations from the corrupted seeds of the Nephilim.
Yes.
That sent shivers through me and still does.
Yes.
You have not yet seen deliverance from the corrupted seeds of the Nephilim. So the Nephilim, of course, were giants created in a very ungodly ways by demonic forces.
Right. Yeah, that's good. Good word. Good word. And you know, and as you sent me some other information, but you're right on deliverance as being one of the key factors in number 14. Then it was so interesting. I'm going to tell more of this story, and maybe you can just even do that now, Miriam, just quickly about the arrow, if you could.
Yes, well, Mike came over to my house for doing some time ministry. And on my
Can you bring it over here?
Yeah.
That's okay. Yes. If anybody else could just mute if you're on, that would be great. So Miriam, yeah, come on over and show us this.
And so Mike came over to my house on Monday, and we were engaged in some prayer ministry. And he saw on my sideboard an arrow. And this is a First Nations arrow. And he asked me about it. And so I told him the story from 2 Kings 13, how you were to strike the ground more than 3 times to overcome the enemy. And that was from 2 Kings 13. And so I didn't really pay too much attention to it at the time. But then I was involved in a prayer ministry on the Wednesday after Mike had come over. And it's an international prayer ministry. It's called Lydia International. And we pray the word of God, and the Lord downloads prayer strategies for the land. He said he looks for a man to stand in the gap on behalf of the land. And he's found this group of women across the world that actually pray in the land. And a woman from Italy says to me, I've got a word for you, 2 Kings 13.
Yes.
It's
It is. So in this, as Miriam just shared, they had prayed and spoken after that word as well, about the trip that I'm going on and this arrow. So she said, you should be taking this, which I already knew. When I first saw it was significant at her house, I just went over to it. I said, what's this arrow? Anyway, and the interesting thing is, if you look at that passage in 2 Kings, so let me just bring that up for you. So here you are, 2 Kings chapter 13. I'm going to start in verse 15. And so it says, Elisha said, get a bow and some arrows. And he said, and he did so. Take the bow in your hands, he said to the king of Israel. When he had taken it, Elisha put his hands on the king's hand. Open the east window, he said, and he opened it. Shoot, Elisha said, and he shot. The Lord's arrow of victory, the arrow of victory over Aram. Elisha declared, you will completely destroy the Arameans and Ephek. Then he said, take the arrows, and the king took them. Elijah told him, strike the ground. He struck it 3 times and stopped. The man of God was angry with him and said, you should have struck the ground 5 or 6 times. Then you would have defeated Aram and completely destroyed it. But now you will defeat it only 3 times. It is interesting, as I read that, and when I was getting the arrow, the Lord said, you're going to strike the ground 14 times. And I thought, 14 times? What 14 times? He said, read the passage again. So I read it again. He said, it was 3 times, or it should have been 5 or 6. Add those numbers up.
Wow.
It equals 14. The 5 or 6, 11, the 3, 14. He says, and this number just keeps coming up. The 14th spike will be going in. He said, when you strike the ground, you strike it 14 times. This is deliverance for this nation. Anyway, there you go. Just to give you, I'm going to share certainly a few more things. I need to, let me just, if you haven't muted, I might be muting you if that's okay. Just for everybody else's sake. We're just picking up some other noise, and so that would be helpful if we can. Where, oh yes, it's there. And mute all, yes, thank you. All right, so again, in this is just to give you a bit of a sense of this call. I can't tell you how much I have been working on this, connecting. I sent out that video. If you haven't seen it yet, you absolutely are going to want to watch the Dutch Sheets. This is the book. If you haven't seen that yet, let me just share a few things with you. So this one is the book. I've already purchased it on Kindle. They're sold out immediately. They're on backlog. But anyway, people are connecting. So I am going through this book, of which the dream comes from. But this map here is what the Lord so clearly gave me in reference to this, these spikes and how this is going to be completed. He said, this is how these cables will be run across this nation. And it is quite amazing, because what I immediately saw, and somebody actually wrote to me very quickly after I sent it out to a few people, that it looks like the arms of the Lord cradling, you know, the arms of the Lord cradling this nation. And so these, even where he told me to connect the cables, okay, where to connect these cables that were, I think he calls them some guidelines, guide wires, from White Horse, the White Horse comes down. So that is, in one sense, my furthest north to my furthest south, which is Point Pelee. Okay, then I was thinking of bringing Haida Gwaii to point for Cape Spear. He said no. Haida Gwaii, the lighthouse in Vancouver. When you brought the stones from Cape Spear to the west coast at the lighthouse in Vancouver, that is connected. Those are connected through the altars and stones that you brought from one to the other. He said, Haida Gwaii, I want you to connect to the headquarters of the Masons that you went, and as you tore down the headquarters and the authority of the nations over this land, connect Haida Gwaii. As you break the curse from Haida Gwaii, you're connecting it to the stronghold of the Masons in Hamilton. I mean, I can't make this up, right? I mean, I just, It's just extraordinary where the Lord said to put these. So yes, you connect the altars and the lighthouses from Vancouver to St. John's. And that's how all of these, and then the other, which is from the border, right? The US crossing border, right there, right up against the Pacific Ocean, right at the ocean where Canada and USA meet. He says you connect that to Ottawa because something is going to be dealt with there in the midst of the shaking, connecting both nations through the Canada and the US united in this. Ottawa is going to be dealt with in the shaking of all that is going to take place. Yeah, I tell you, that's how he told me to lay these cables. He said, this is how the angels are going to connect these cables, these spikes that are anchors deeply in the earth, in all that is happening in these things, as I will cradle Canada in my arms in the midst of this shaking that is going to be coming. Okay. Yes.
When you first started speaking, this could be out of my soul, but September is when in the world we know it's the fall.
The fall, right? Yes. Which I believe starts September 21st. Right there. Yeah, that's right. It is called the fall. So yes, all of these I'm just going to, oh yeah, this is really important. So all of this, right? So this is downloads on fresh manna Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning. I'm connecting, by Tuesday night, actually. I think we booked our travels. That all of this within a handful of hours, from not a clue we were doing this to booking the ferry to everything in place in 12 hours. I mean, the Lord just does this, right? So everything just comes together. And even worked on Carmen's heart to be okay with driving. At one point she goes, I think you need to do this one on your own again. I said, I don't think so. Anyway, yeah, my car. Yeah, yeah. I could use her car enough. This is mine. Anyway, the Lord has provided the chariot as well. Anyway, in the midst of all that, and I'm trying to get my days straight now because there's just a lot this whole week. I think it was either yesterday morning or maybe it was Thursday morning, and one of those two for sure. He said to me so clearly, do not forget Israel and Jerusalem. Okay? Do not forget Israel and Jerusalem. And so as I'm working on this, this what's happening in this nation, all of this stuff, I tell you, he stopped me in my tracks and he said, all of this, be that what Dutch Sheets is talking about for the States, be that what's happening, that is a result of the 21 days of prayer and fasting as the people around the world lifted up Israel and Jerusalem, and all that took place there on those steps, those southern steps, as we gathered there and worshiped there, and as I, anointed that Temple Mount with oil, preparing for the Lord to return and the temple that's going to be placed there, and going to the very place where he will be descending upon the earth and coming in a straight line through Gate Beautiful and up onto the Temple Mount, where he will establish his kingdom forever upon this earth. May we never forget, how could we, Israel and Jerusalem and the significance that they play in the midst of that. And he said, be very aware. You are never to just stay in one of the streams. Yes, this Dutch Sheets and, Kent Christmas, and he's connected to, of course, Tim and what they did with the spikes across the United States, those 50, the 12 that came in, obvious connection. There's a bit of a different stream. I'm not sure any of these people really got involved in the whole prayer and fasting for Israel. But then, then of course we know the Mike Bickles and the Lou Engels and all of them that were connected, and Jason Hubbard and all of them, and that group that was so connected with the 21 days of prayer and fasting. Then, you have I call them the Elijah Streams group, and these prophets, be that Robin Bullock or Johnny Enlow and these others, and what they're speaking about in the book of Revelation, but they're agreeing on the significance of these days and where this is going, and reading the book of Revelation with clearer vision and eyes of what has already happened and what is still to happen in these coming days. Then we talk about the kingdom movement, and so we have people like I keep forgetting, Gil and Adina, that have been a big part of that, and Nancy Cohen and Chris Carter, who just passed away, but has had such a significant and walking in the heavens and doing that. He said, you need to be operating in the fullness of all four of these understandings in these days, and you need to be part of connecting those things together. None of them are meant to be isolated from one another. They are meant to be connected to have a fuller understanding, revelation for these coming days. And he says, you need to keep your head connected to all of those things, and you need to participate in making those connections. Be that with the Lou Engels and Mike Bickles to the others. And again, I don't know what that could possibly look like, but he said, I'm calling you to bring greater connection to these things. So I received that as a pretty heavy word. Weighty, I guess is the right term. Heavy sometimes has a negative connotation, but a weighty word that I was given. Then this definitely, from last night, just so powerfully rocked me. Carmen and I taking communion together, and just in the midst of doing that, finishing that. If you haven't heard the term yet, command the forward. It's already been spoken. I think that was Roger who spoke that. I'm going to spend a few minutes on this. I just love that term. That is strange until you understand it, because it was first given, I think even Dutch got that on a separate occasion. And then this, the woman who had this dream, what so much of this is connected to, when she first got it, didn't totally make sense. So she saw the writing of it in her mind's eye. Forward, command the forward, not F-A-R-W-A-R-D, but rather forward, F-O-R-E-W-O-R-D, forward as in the beginning of a book. The forward that's stated at the very beginning of the book that sort of sets you up for what is going to come. The forward, the first statements, the things that set up all that is to come. And in that sense, in the fullest sense of that dream, it was those first statements made upon the America, and the Lord said to me, and Canada, those first statements. And when we look at that first statement made in 1609, as was given to me, I love the word that came to me from Warren that said, realize they obviously were not the United States yet. They were still under England, and England is even mentioned in that statement, and Canada would also then be a part of that statement, right? Because that's all of that is still under that word. And so we also can participate in that forward. But I also know that there are more specific in Canada, on Canada, and even today, there's a gathering on the plains of Abraham. Today, as many leaders from across Canada are gathering on the plains of Abraham. And let me just show you, this is, I need to share this, so give me a second so that you guys can see this. This is amazing. Just came to me yesterday. I was speaking yesterday to somebody that some of you know, Heather from St. John's, Newfoundland, and she is there in Quebec City, where the Plains of Abraham are there, and there's this gathering. So just yesterday, they're calling all those that were participating in the Red Fridays to participate today. And so some of what we're going to be doing, and wherever you are on this Zoom, take some time today. Right now, they're calling from 10:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. your time for Red Friday as they gather there today on the Plains of Abraham, that place where direction of our nation was determined in the 1700s. That's happening today, right now. They are on that land, making decrees, commanding the forward there on the Plains of Abraham. They may not have understood what I just said fully, but that's exactly what they're doing. Okay, that's exactly.
Of Tammuz,
Yes.
which is 8, which is a season of new beginning.
Season of new beginnings, yes. Oh, you just reminded me of something. Yes, season of new beginnings in this new month of Tammuz that we are in this gathering. Again, look at all the things that are connecting right now. As I was reaching out to Heather from O'Driscoll from St. John's, Newfoundland, who is a part of that spike in a big way, a part of the coast to coast stuff. And as they're gathering there on this Red Saturday, connected to the prior 3 Red Fridays that we participated in. All right, well, we are going to command the forward. So last night, back to that, last night, as the Lord was speaking to me about the command the forward, he said, you have spoken about the scrolls, those scrolls that I wrote with every person on the planet, anybody who has existed before the creation of the universe. I sat down with the spirit of all of each one individually. Again, people are asking me a lot of questions. It would take a lot of teaching. Let me just use this analogy. Not exactly the same, but it gives you at least a bit of a picture. Jesus, who comes into the womb of Mary, is in spirit. Jesus comes in to Mary in the person of the humanity that was being knit together in Mary's womb. We, I believe, all existed in the spirit and were able to, he says, I knew you even before the foundations were put in place. And I believe I've been to see my scroll that we all had that opportunity to sit down and write our scrolls of which we were to come and participate in fulfilling. And again, the enemy wants to make sure we're not aware of that. He wants to make sure we don't know our significance. He wants to make sure we don't know what was written. He is stealing. He is a thief, right? Jesus said he comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. And one of the things that he's come to steal is the fullness of our identity and the call that we've had on our lives in these days to understand the scroll. And what the Lord said to me last night, he says, as you have seen your scroll and the fullness is what is written, he said, command the forward. In each of our lives, that scroll that was written was a forward of which we are to participate in. Each one of us gets to command the forward for ourselves individually. We get to command the forward of our scroll that was written. And boy, that rocked me. So even this morning, as I went down to the stream, and again, the Lord, I was going to take communion. I did take communion, and part of, just so you know, part of the Israeli connection. I know I'm jumping around. It's hard to keep all of this straight. But as I was 2 mornings ago, or maybe yesterday morning, he said, when you take communion, when you take the wine, take wine whose grapes were grown in Israel. There's a blessing on the land. There's a blessing in the grapes. And so I immediately went out, and this is, Wendy brought me a few more of these today, but this is the exact bottle I purchased yesterday, and it says from Galilee, where these grapes were grown in Israel, in Galilee. If you don't know before Israel got back to that land, before they were given that land, 1948, I'm just quickly going through that, I believe, 1948, when they were given that land, it was desolate. It was a desert. Nothing grew there. Nothing. And when they came back, the Lord has blessed the land and crops are flourishing. They have actually become a nation, as small as they are, with abundant export because the land is so abundant. And even when they grow grapes on land that you should never be able to grow grapes in stony, rocky, dry soil, grapes are flourishing on that land because the land is blessed. The people there are blessed. And he said, may you take communion. From now on, this is, nobody has to follow that. I'm just saying this is a word for me. May you, when you take communion, take it with the grapes grown on the blessed land and be a reminder of the blessing that I have for Israel and the land there. That's what I have poured in my cup from Israel, is the wine that I have in my cupboard. You might even want to grab that with the little Israeli symbol on it and stuff. But anyway, again, some of this is specific. But as I was down there, I was also reminded, because then I always have communion elements in my case. The wine I use now is the wine from this bottle Carmen's about to grab, which is again the same. And as I took that and I was pouring this wine from Israel, and I thought, oh, all I have left is this piece that the Lord told me to keep from when Rachel in Zambia made that bigger piece of the scroll that I ate. She made 2 of those. I haven't mentioned that. The second one, as I used, I had a piece of that and I brought that back with me. So that was all that I still had left in my bag, was this piece from there that I ended up taking today. Was as I was referring to eating the scroll and taking and commanding the forward of my scroll into the fullness of the destiny that I am to live out, was to take this from the very place where he had me eat that scroll. Again, wasn't set up in my mind. It was all that I had. The Lord is speaking so clearly to all of these things. And I'm going to take a deep breath there. This is a lot. It feels like a lot. Carmen just brought this over, so you'll see that this one has been opened. We actually bought this in Israel as well. The little cork that we're using, you see it from the breastplate of the priest, and the symbol here, this wine that I have in my communion cup here, and what I took this morning and last night as well. Anyway, this is the next journey. But what I will say to all of us, be collecting your manna every day. Continue to expect, be expectant, have the faith to believe, have the ears to hear. It's a whisper. Trust yourself, trust what is coming. Stop allowing the enemy to steal away what God is saying. How many times do we receive something and talk ourselves out of it? Because how could that be us? We are extraordinary beyond comprehension. Everybody who has ever lived in the fullness of, created in the image and likeness of God. We are extraordinary beyond comprehension. Stop allowing the enemy to steal our identity, to steal the scroll identity, what has been written for us to accomplish. May we begin to walk in the fullness of that understanding and command. Now, understand how closely command, decree. You that are connected to this, you understand Howard has made that so unbelievably clear. The decreeing aspect, decree, command, okay, that you can overlap those 2 words. They're very much mean the exact same thing. Decree, command the forward of your scroll. Decree, command the forward of this nation. Okay, you can do that. decree, command the forward of your marriage, whatever that is. I'm saying, you see, there are scrolls in heaven. I've been in that library. It's massive, unbelievable place to be. The library of heaven. Again, don't theologically, get bent out of shape. I'm just saying I've been there. Whether or not you, at this point, I've developed enough credits for people to actually, when something comes out of my mouth, not to just so easily dismiss it. I've been there. It's extraordinary. And for those relationships, for your families, for your areas, your neighborhoods, for your nation, for this world, there are scrolls that have been written, and we can decree and command the forward in each of those places as we understand that. Amen, amen. Well, I'm going to sign off. This is about to end. I just got a second warning, and I think this would be the place. We're going to continue here for a little bit. Again, Saturday, Red Saturday, especially for you in Canada, as they're standing on the soil in the plains of Abraham, making statements of this nation on, sorry, this is interesting. I hadn't even mentioned. On St. John Baptiste Day. Today is St. John Baptiste Day. The Lord has now spoken through several people to say, part of my call, part of what's on my scroll is to be a forerunner, to be part of preparing the way in this time. And so on this St. John Baptiste Day, John the Baptist. Yes, on John Baptist Day of Quebec. It's just interesting how that is connected into this as well. So blessings to you. Again, I'll get this recording up. I'll put the two together. And thank you for all that have joined in. I have, again, no intention of doing this next week, but who knows? I can't even say that anymore. I'll see what the Lord wants to do for next week. That'll determine what happens. That will be just before we head out on the 6th, that Thursday, following Thursday. So a week Thursday, the 6th. If you could put it on your calendar, if you could pray for us, a lot is intended. So yeah, if anybody has, you just want to unmute in the midst, everybody's seeing you on screen here, just so you know. I'm going to undo this. How do I come out of this view? Just go back to gallery. I'm going to go back to gallery. We can see you there, all of you across. Tim, Martha, yes, Liz, I see you. So many of you that are there. You might not be able to see everybody here, but we see you here. And so great. Liz, it was great as you and I even connected last night as you were taking communion. Carmen and I took communion, lifted your family up in the midst of that last night as well. And so the Lord, oh, the weight of some of these things. It's just such a privilege. I can't tell you how privileged I am to participate. With people. It's a privilege. Anything I've said, if there's a hint of arrogance in it, please, that's not in my heart. I can't believe the stuff I'm speaking about. I mean, it's just as surprised as anybody else. So this doesn't come from me, except that the Lord is speaking these things. And so it is a privilege to be here, to even that people would even want to be a part of this today, and to be able to share this with you, the weight of this, and what I believe the Lord is calling all of us to participate in these extraordinary days, that we would be collecting our fresh manna, decreeing, commanding the forward in every areas of our lives and over this nation in these 2.5 remaining months of preparation, which will continue through that, of course, but believing a shaking is coming. Be prepared, prepare yourself, and command the forward in the midst of it. All right. Blessings to you all. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Bye-bye.